Hello, invisible audience and listeners of the future. Welcome back to the Roll Report and Classing Up the Joint, the part of the show where we ask amazing people unamazing questions. Sort of. My name is Colin. I am your host and GM of the Roll Report. I use he and they pronouns, and I am here with my fantastic guest, who I will let introduce themselves. Fantastic guest, take it away.
Hi, I am happy to be here. My name is Dennis. I use he, him pronouns, and you can find all my stuff across socials at Okayest DM. I started out with a YouTube channel that's still going, and now I'm diving into the wide world of social media. So you can find me there as well.
Amazing. I've been curious about this almost since I think whenever I joined that Discord server that we are mutuals on, like, why did you opt for Okayest?
Okay, so
like, rather than, I mean, best DM is like really setting yourself up
right.
for the
I don't want
to
try
go,
to set
are
myself
you really?
that expectation, right? The entire point of the YouTube channel, the whole spiel is, hi, I'm Dennis. I'm the Okayest DM. This is Okayest DM, where I make mistakes running games so you don't have to. And that is what I intended to do from the very beginning. The whole channel is about stories about mistakes that I've made running my games, you know, things I've tried, advice from the internet, and whether or not they worked at my table in practice. Because, like, you see a lot of stuff around that's like, in theory, this would be awesome, but I haven't tried it myself. You go try it. And I'm like, dude, how do we know if there's any credibility to your idea if you haven't tried it?
This random human on the internet says it's great.
Right.
Go try it at your table, right?
Exactly. So I think it's very important to actually try out things for yourself before you tell other people whether or not they're good. And even I don't try to tell people what will work at their table. I don't know their dynamic.
Sure.
I don't know their play style. And there's such a huge variance, even in one TTRPG across like 5th edition D&D. There's a huge variance of how people like to play, the scale of how much roleplay there is versus how much combat there is versus, you know, whether everyone wants to min-max or just one person wants to min-max. Like there's so many variables, and not every single piece of advice you hear is going to work. So I try it out for myself, and I tell you the story of whether or not it worked.
Yeah. I love that. I'm going to duck out of sight and turn off my heater because I just realized it's going to be this great little buzz in the background of audio. It's like, it's cold in here. There's a way that you're describing the channel, and I'm going to say this, I mean this as the highest of compliments. It's like the D&D and maybe other RPG versions of, not unboxing, but like the YouTube channels where they'll buy shit from infomercials. And like test the slap chop and whatever, and be like, well, it slapped and chopped, or you know. But yeah, there's a wealth. One of the things that I've discovered is how much third-party content and rules and different systems to splice into your games at home there is. But I think it's like a really, really cool thing to do, to like gather all that stuff and be like, I'm going to try this at my table so you don't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that. I think that also begs the follow-up question, is there notable things that either worked really well at your table or completely failed? Maybe like one or two of those, but like
so many.
The big one. Okay.
The scale on whether or not how well something worked is enormous. I think the worst one that I can think of that is, it's not really a story, it's because it's so short, but I saw somewhere that like there are plenty of ways to get advantage in D&D, but all the players always rely on flanking. And I suggested it once to my table, like, let's try this combat without flanking rules, and everybody was immediately upset. And I'm like, okay, you can have your flanking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, maybe that'll work for some tables, but definitely not mine.
Well, I feel like, I mean, flanking obviously super popular for anyone who's going to be a martial class and like want to wade into melee. And I think there's both the amount of different ways people try when they're like, can my spiritual weapon give me flanking if it's on the other side of that thing?
Well, technically it's not a creature, so...
But does the wizard's familiar give flanking in addition to maybe the help action if the wizard has told it to, or whoever wizard
right. There's so many and then there's the rule of cool you introduce where flanking is technically not necessarily, it says creature, but what it should mean is a melee threat, and a spiritual weapon is absolutely a melee threat. So if you're paying attention to something behind you as well as something in front of you, one of those things is going to have an advantage, probably both of them. So I tend to rule that yes, spiritual weapon will give you flanking, because I always how I design my combats usually is way too difficult for a party of that level that should be able to take care of it. But then I'm really, really nice as we play, and I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, that'll work.
Yeah. I find that's a little bit of a byproduct of, CR ratings and how, depending on which encounter builder you might be using, if you're using an online one, they underestimate your players' capabilities and competence consistently, in my experience.
I agree. Yeah. And I'm currently designing my own game, Sagas, is in Kickstarter right now, and I'm sure we'll get to it in a second.
Yes. Yes, we will.
But one of the hardest things to do as I was going through and designing this game, even though it's super, super rules light, figuring out an encounter calculator so the GM can tell how difficult this combat is going to be was so difficult. I literally had to call up my cousin who has a PhD in mathematics from Berkeley. And I'm like, dude, how do I do this? And he ran through a couple million permutations of, scenarios that could possibly arise. And he wasn't even including all the variables. It was even with just everybody is stand and swing, the most boring form of combat where you roll dice and nothing happens.
Right.
And there's just so many variables. It's so difficult to predict how difficult this monster is going to be for a party of this level. And I used to really, really hate that about 5th edition, is this calculator is just broken. It doesn't work. And then I started making my own for a different system. I'm like, okay, I kind of respect the effort that they went through to try to make a balanced calculator in the first place. And you know what? They probably did a better job than I did. So there's a modicum of respect.
They might have had a couple more people working on it.
Yeah, one or two.
I do want to give them that I've learned how to use it as a guide. Basically, anytime it says deadly, I know that my players will probably be fine, unless it's gone, 6 creatures past deadly, and I'm like, well, now maybe one of them's going to get knocked out.
Yeah. That's where I go. I just above the threshold that says deadly is right where I like to sit.
So talk to me about Sagas, because this is one of the reasons I was so excited to talk to you in the first place. I feel like, since we're gonna tease a little bit, maybe the elevator pitch. What is it? Why is it? Why are you so excited about it? And why is it necessary? Maybe, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more later in the podcast.
So I know this is a little bit of a cop-out, but I do as with any game, I have an actual elevator pitch that just pulled up on my screen, so I'll read it to you.
Yes. Give it to me.
Sagas, Setting and Genre Agnostic System, is a universal math-light TTRPG designed to help easily tell your story in any world. Choose from over 100 features to build your character, or use the guidelines for quickly making your own unique abilities. Sagas also promotes helping allies over helping yourself. Using smooth and fast combat rules, you can describe the epic team combos that take down the final boss. Sagas uses a check-based roll-under resolution system. Your character features change the size of the die you roll, and your allies can help by giving you more dice to roll, improving your chances of getting the lowest number possible. And that's the short version of the elevator pitch. That's
I love
got a couple of really cool stuff sprinkled out about it. Obviously it's lives up to its name, Setting and Genre Agnostic System. It's an acronym. And we have played in, I don't know, upwards of 50 different worlds now, and we still have yet to find one that doesn't work. Even when we've challenged other people, I bet you can't find a world that doesn't work with Sagas. And we're like, we can't find it yet. We've done so many. We've done Pokemon in the post-apocalypse. We've done. We have planned a couple anime ones. We've got a Jujutsu Kaisen one coming up. We're also doing a One Piece miniseries pretty soon. We've done a hospital drama with no combat. We have. I think some of my favorite ones are the ones that switch worlds in the middle of the session. One of the runs I ran for the channel Roll D5, we went through 10 different worlds in one session, and it was just like the players got to roll on like random results on this world building table, and I would improv the world that they would appear in when that happened, and it was just so much fun every single time I play this. I mean, it's my own game. Obviously it's going to be fun for me, but I'm very impressed with how easy it is to switch worlds while keeping all of the mechanics of the game and all of the abilities of your character exactly the same. You don't have to do anything except like maybe re-describe what your character looks like in a noir setting.
Sure. Yeah, you cross through the portal, the magical boundary, the hand wave faffy hoo-ha, and suddenly my costume has changed.
Exactly.
I am setting appropriate now.
And that is one of my favorite parts of doing those switches is watching the players re-describe what their same character looks like in this new world. There's just been so many like starstruck moments that I've had at running these games.
Well, I want to say first, great name and acronym, like really well done seizing on that.
Thank you.
Because I feel like not only Saga has this like really nice epic sound and feel. I'm a big like words person. We do a ton of tongue twisters before every recording, and like it's got a nice feel.
I might steal that.
And to absolutely. I can send you the giant list that my housemate has compiled. We've been making our own for like 6 months now. There's some really good ones. But to then in that title completely accurately describe what you're doing, it is setting and genre agnostic and system, and that what I'm hearing is that this is a really really fine-tuned and versatile storytelling device.
Exactly.
And one of the things I love about D&D and a lot of RPGs is it's collaborative storytelling. We are all trying to create a saga, create this epic, an epic hospital drama as it may be. but right? Like it's yeah. So I don't know, A+ choice of title and acronym, like really.
Thank you. We were very proud of that in our little alpha testing brainstorming session when we're like, we got to think of an actual name for this thing. And we went through so many scrapped ideas. Like the first idea I came up with was D13. And I'm like, that's a cool name. Okay. People are going to be asking, what the heck is this? And okay, what is it going to be about? Maybe the mechanics are going to be everything uses the D12 plus 1. Ha 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 ha. And within like 2 hours, I realized how dumb that was. I was like, you just have to add 1 to everything? Why?
There's the mechanics for this to match the name are like,
yeah, that's backwards.
Chicken and egg situation, which is going to come first. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, 12. I would play that system just for the sort of like clownish delight in being like, I just add 1, you say, no matter what. I love it. So I'm like trying to decide how much I want to ask you about this right now, and then like, and how much is going to be behind Patreon where you have to give us money to hear everything. So does it use kind of like the full set of polyhedral dice depending on depending on the abilities and the way you are constructing your character?
So it uses a D6, a D8, a D10, and a D12. Those are the 4 you need. So most of a set. Okay. The base die is a D10. If you're bad at something, you have to use a D12. If you're good at something, you get to use a D8 or a D6. That's the simplest way to explain it because this is a roll low system. So like on an attack roll, if you roll a 1, that's a crit.
Right. I'm also very tickled just by that inversion of things where almost always almost every other system that I'm familiar with, higher is the desired outcome.
Yeah. I really wanted like I was thinking about doing a roll high system early on, but the reason I went with a roll under is because I wanted it's just how it worked with the variants. I didn't want there to have to be modifiers. Like you don't have to add anything after you roll in this game. You just roll and then immediately know whether you succeeded or failed. There's no arithmetic you have to do. There's no crunching of the numbers. You just know. And when you are actually like calculating how much damage you do, you only have to be able to count up by 1. And if you can do that, it's you can play Sagas. Like
I'd really like to think most people can do that. I'm sure some people kind of can't or have not learned yet if they are, say, 4. But
well, there was a 5-year-old who put together a character on his own, and it was like one of the best built characters that I had yet seen in the game. He was literally playing an ice dragon. And he made that on his own without being like walked through the rules. And I'm like, one, either you're a genius or this game is super easy to play.
Or both. I mean, I love that. I think, again, one of the things that I love about RPGs is that I'm hearing more and more of a whole family game that's been going on for years. It might be. I'm working on my family. I'll get him eventually. And now, actually, my youngest nephew is about to be 7, so it seems like this would be a really good system for him.
It is time.
It is so time. It is so time. I love it.
Oh my God! Hi, you're listening to us. Thanks. I hope you're enjoying the show. If you are, if you could leave us a 5-star rating or review on the podcast platform that you prefer, it would give me, and I'm sure all of us, a massive dopamine hit. And it helps spread the word about our amazing show that we're all having so much fun doing. If you could follow us on social media, we're at The Roll Report Cast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and that's it. And if you really like us and or you have all the money in the world, like some of our Bay Area friends do, you could support us at patreon.com/The Roll Report. Now back to the show.
Well, okay, so let's save a little bit because I definitely want to hear more about it, but let's save a little bit and I'm going to wrench us back to the most important question, clearly. A question. Dennis, and let me make sure that I'm at the right place to take a note or two about this because we have a spreadsheet. I am about data in some cases.
Oh, I'm also a data rat. I'm a fan.
Someday I'll be able to have a nice spreadsheet table, something of everyone's favorites. But what is your favorite D&D character class?
D&D character class?
Or classes.
So I can't, my whole channel, right, is you can't knock something until you try it, right? And I have not yet tried all of the D&D classes, so I can't answer this question with certainty. But I can say, of the ones I have tried so far, the one I've had the most fun with is Barbarian. Because there are so many, I'm very much a storyteller more than a, rules and mechanics kind of, both when I'm running games and when I'm playing in them. I like to make sure that the story is good and compelling and people are invested. That's my favorite part. And with Barbarian, combat tends to be pretty simple and straightforward with what you're allowed to do. And so it pushes me to be more creative with those things. I don't want to be the guy that just stands there and swings again at the dragon, and then swings again at the dragon, and then swings again at the dragon, and it gets repetitive and boring. And so I want to say, okay, I'm going to jump on top of the dragon's back. Right? And I feel like Barbarian is very much the class that would do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I also really like, twisting the actual flavor that you're given in the book into something else. Like, obviously, Barbarian's big thing is rage, right? Okay, rage doesn't have to be an anger emotion. You could rage through happiness, or one of my favorite ones, you just get super depressed and you start hitting things harder. And or you could play a character that just has all of these emotions, and what emotion you use to do that extra damage depends on the situation that you're currently in when you go into that quote unquote rage.
Mechanically, I enter a rage, but in the game, I'm doing this. I am just feeling very strong emotions, and I don't know which one.
Yeah, exactly. You're frustrated at the way that you feel, whether that be, whatever it is. And there's also one really, really cool multi-class that I've been thinking about, but I obviously am one of those forever GMs, so I don't get a ton of opportunity to play, and I'm now branching out into many other games other than D&D 5th edition. So I don't know if I'll ever get the opportunity to play this, but I really like the workaround that I found for a barbarian that uses quote unquote magic. So you're a wild magic barbarian with a this is not optimal. I'm a big fan of suboptimal characters, but you multi-class into monk and go with 4 elements monk, because there's a lot of really spell-like effects in there that aren't technically spells, and those would be really, really cool to use as a barbarian, and you would still get the extra rage damage on top of it and everything. Yeah. And so I really want to that's how I create characters, is I find a weird mechanic and I base the entire character around that mechanic. Like I played a gnome once who I think it was a fighter, but he wielded a maul, and as gnome being a small character gets disadvantage on all attacks with heavy weapons. So I like to flavor it as
stupid, but okay.
He didn't wield the maul wielded him, and he was the one flying around everywhere after taking his swing. And so
you swing it once, and then that just carries the gnome around the battlefield like a helicopter.
And we with reckless attack, it actually wasn't that bad, because it always balanced out. No matter what other situation is, you get disadvantage from wielding the heavy weapon and advantage from reckless attack. So it's always a straight roll no matter what the scenario is, which was not too terrible, and it was a ton of fun to flavor every single one of the attacks into what it looks like.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think you are the first person to name barbarian. It was
myself.
It was included as part of Connie Chong's 3 different favorites that we did not necessarily narrow down.
Okay.
And
that's
also,
fair.
I also think that the first person who's talked about character building from a mechanical quirk, which I love. Like not only the flavor that it allows you to bring to the character and the world that you're playing in, but that just what a cool way to start is looking for I just want to do the X mechanical thing that sounds interesting and fun, and the rest of the character and who they are can grow out of that thing.
Yeah, and not only does the rest of the actual mechanical character building grow out of that to make sure that mechanic works and you can use it often, but the things that you have to do for that and what kind of character, like personality and vibe, you can create from whatever you need to take to make it work.
Yeah. Actually, I guess also the first person to have anything nice to say about a 4 elements monk.
It's not good, guys. It's just straight up not good. But it's there, so we can use it. So why not?
The intention is good. I appreciate the intention. The idea that I think I went through a big kung fu movie phase and things whether or not it's based in anything real. I think there are a lot of stories about these elemental monks in our collective human unconscious and storytelling bank. And to try to do that was a great idea. Just the actual mechanics of it are kind of terrible.
Yep, they are quite subpar.
Well, I'm trying to I've thought a couple times about ways to fix them, and I didn't know if there was you just need to just double their key point pool immediately, since if I'm remembering, everything depends on the casting of spells, which are not spells, depends on multiple key points. I don't know, but I would be really curious to see that combination. As a fellow basically forever GM, I don't know the next time I will get to play, but I want to try it now.
It's not going to work, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be so much fun. Yeah. I really, and I appreciate what you were saying also, that the flavor you can get with a barbarian within combat when, your expectation is go stand up there in the front, soak up some damage and take a couple swings, but with depending on how you build it with a high athletics roll, with these other tools at your disposal, you can climb on top of a fucking dragon.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I heard about someone who did like a very grapple specialized barbarian, and their whole thing was trying to flavor it like weird WWE moves or things, but grapple, pick up a thing and like throw it into another enemy sort of thing. Yeah. Super fun. I had half of a thought about a barbarian, and I have no idea what it was. So
very barbarian of you.
Right? And then, playing against type, just max out your, I don't know, strength and intelligence, have the smart barian.
I love subverting expectations like that. Like, I am a barbarian and I have nerd rage.
Yes, and I can accurately quote to you most of the books that I've read, which are, that entire library over there, and all of the knowledge about the planes and the gods and deities. Ooh, shiny thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's like really
wisdom
low
is
wisdom,
the dump stat,
like
clearly.
and terrible charisma because you just lecture people all the time.
Yes, you talk at people.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. So many good character choices to make in there. Well, and since I could just wax poetic about barbarians, but that's not entirely the point of the show. Subclasses. And again, I guess of the ones that you have played, what are favorites?
All right. There are a lot of subclasses. First of all, this is a much harder decision to make.
Oh yeah.
And of the ones I've played, obviously there's more that I want to play than ones that I've actually played. Like the Dragon Monk looks super cool. Never touched it. I don't think I've even done a Totem Barbarian. And, obviously
they're so fun.
Those look so cool. But I've always chosen, the Storm Herald or the was the Beast one. That was my other favorite subclass for Barbarian. But of all the subclasses from all the classes, my favorite one, oh man. Most of my problem right now is trying to remember them all. Remember all the ones that, I've played.
No, there's 5 or 6 for every class, even if one of them you're going to throw out right away, but
Exactly. Oh man. I might have to go Beast Barbarian unless I can think of another one. Of the ones that I can remember right now, I really enjoy. It's a real easy flavor step to go from Beast Barbarian to Werewolf or whatever creature you want to be. And you get the teeth and the claws and the tail or whatever you need, whatever you have to add to the flavor of that of your character in combat. And I also really, really like the flavor that these transformations allow you to do in the middle of combat. Again, I'm going back to that, and still sticking in the realm of Barbarian, because there's so much space for creation. You don't have as many as much flavor text telling you exactly what this spell does, and it's not like you have to listen to those. You just have to listen to the rules that are associated with them. But Barbarian has a distinct lack of those things. So I really like, the mechanics of you can get an extra attack, or I think the other one is extra damage, and another one is add a D8 to your AC, which I think is a really interesting mechanic with the tail for the Beast Barbarian. If I'm remembering this correctly, it's been a long time.
I'm trying to pull it up in the background. I think, but as it matches everything that I'm remembering so far.
Yeah, you get one of these 3 transformations every time you rage, and my favorite is always going to be the suboptimal one, right? You want an extra attack, obviously. That would be the good decision to make. Get those teeth. But I really, really like that tail for some reason. And it just gives you a D8 boost to your AC against attacks as a reaction, I think. Which balanced. Like, that's not overpowered. It's not underpowered. Like, a D8 is significant, but you need to use your reaction for it. So, and I really, really like the flavor of, maybe it's not a tail. Maybe you're growing like a thicker, denser, matted fur, or you're starting to grow scales across like your shoulders and neck. And there's so many other cool things you can do to change your character's appearance to flavor a boost in AC.
Yeah. Well, and that one, that was everything. The only thing is that a tail gives you a reach weapon.
Oh,
it gives you
amazing.
So it gives you adds 5 feet. So it probably means that you have 10 feet for normal melee range, and thus for opportunity attacks and things if something's trying to get past you. Your reaction is swipe your tail and roll a d8.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's. I like that it the rules as written offer you things, right? For bite, it says your mouth transforms into, quote, a bestial muzzle or great mandibles, your choice. But also, who gives a shit?
As long as you get that extra bonus.
And what animal is it that your character, that your barbarian is most attached to for whatever reason? Like, if it's neither of those things, if it's not necessarily like more like a wolf or a bear, like very classically aggressive predator mammal, or like a giant insect, you're like, no, I'm connected to Komodo dragons. I grow this, like I start getting scales and like get like some fangs and like a really gross, terrible bacterial poison on my bite. Or I think that's what they have. Something horrible.
And like, here's my pitch. It doesn't always have to be the same animal. And immediately upon realizing that and opening up that gate, I'm thinking, here's a barbarian who thinks he's a druid that can wild shape. And he just like grows strange animalistic features every time he gets angry or whatever emotion you choose.
Yeah. Well, and I've talked about it with a couple people, kind of the play style of, do you keep your classes, do your players keep their classes and like abilities secret from each other for the first little bits of the game or that sort of thing? And as this beast barb, the right couple proficiencies and like a little tweak to your, suboptimal stats, and you can absolutely cosplay a druid for like months of the campaign before someone's finally like, wait a minute.
You haven't cast a single spell. What are you doing?
and you say that you can't heal us.
I'm sorry, it's on principle.
I heal nature. I don't heal people. And I love, because I was looking at this, some of the higher level features. So the 6th level, every short or long rest, you can get a climbing speed, a better jump, or a swimming speed and underwater breathing. Also, just like, what features are you incorporating? And after you take a short rest, you're like, let's sit down for an hour. Suddenly at the end, you've got gills fanning open on your neck, or like, or you've grown, the spider fingers that you can stick to walls and stuff. 10th level, your target of your natural weapons, of your bestial weapons, have to do something, either wisdom throw or a reaction to make a melee attack against another creature that of your choice, or just takes 2d12 psychic.
What?
Which many things are not resistant or immune to. You just get to really...
I didn't even know about that one. What is this?
That is the 10th level infectious fury, which I am looking at and going, actually, if you're going straight barbarian, or at least if you're going to multi-class, getting to level 10 in this, you've gotten your brutal critical, and you've got to like force your targets to do things or take psychic damage, which I love.
Oh, I love, and my immediate like flavor choice for that would be werewolf infection. Like temporarily you turn the target into give you that werewolf fury that you have when you're in your rage, when you're transformed.
And they either got to like take a chomp out of something or try to resist it and take psychic damage.
Right.
And at the 14th level feature, when you rage, you can choose a number of other willing creatures within 30 feet, and you gain 5 temporary hit points for every creature that gets to roll a d6 and gain a damage bonus if they hit an attack roll.
Wait, hang on.
Let me try that again, because I feel like that I've like cherry picking. Okay. When you enter your rage, you can choose a number of other willing creatures you can see within 30 feet of you, equal to con modifier minimum of 1. You gain 5 temporary hit points for each creature that accepts what you offer. Until your rage ends, those creatures can once each turn, if they hit with an attack roll and deal damage, they can roll a bonus d6 of damage.
Just every time?
Once per turn until your rage ends. So
that's so many
werewolf
things.
Right? You werewolf it up. If you're close to your party, you could get, I don't know, party of four or five. You get 20 extra temporary hit points, which as a barbarian will be gone quickly, but it's not nothing. And all of them just get a d6 to any attack roll they make that hits. And that's a great feature.
Yeah, this is so good. It's defense for you and offense for the rest of the party, and you get a ton of temporary hit points depending on your party size. And like, I like the name of this. It's called Call of the Hunt. I also pulled it up because I had to see this.
Yeah, totally.
And immediately I'm flavoring it as like your party sees you transform again. You're like, I'm still so glad he's on our side.
Yes, so much. The balance of it I really appreciate. Like this, as I'm looking at it now, I kind of want to make a beast barb. Why not? That seems really fun.
It looks like a ton of fun. And the more we talk about it, the more I'm solidifying this as my favorite subclass in all of 5th edition. Great.
Love that. I mean, that is a bold claim. All of 5th edition covers a lot, but like
it is a lot.
Definitely, as I'm looking at it, and again, there is the mechanics of it as written are very cool, very advantageous to the player. Bit of a headache for the DM, but
a little bit.
the amount of narrative flavor that you can add to your character and to your party and the story as a whole through these transformations is outstanding.
I think that's why it's my favorite, is because I really, really enjoy flavoring and over flavoring everything that happens in a session. Whether I'm a player or a DM, I just like describing the cool stuff that's going on instead of just rolling dice.
Yeah. I think that's part of the fun of it, and it can make, I have found it can make long combats drag a little bit.
Yeah.
Just in the like, at a certain point, people are like, okay, I'm gonna go and I hit the thing. I cast the spell, and there's less. I pull out this component and I lick it, and then I spit and it turns into acid, and that's how I cast acid, or whatever it might be. Very aside, I have a lot of fun with wizards who use components and flavoring, like, they always got to have a million pockets, and like, where did that fucking component come from that they need to like pull out, and
you don't want to know where I was storing that one.
Yeah. We got, actually, I happen to have small portable holes stashed everywhere that no one else can see.
That's brilliant.
Wow. I feel compelled to ask if there are any close runners up in either subclass or class. Like, the flavor of the barbarian is very hard to beat, but does anything or does another subclass come close for you?
I think for class, runner-up has to be wizard, just because there's so many things you can do with it. And as opposed to barbarian, which is kind of like a almost like a mostly blank page, like you have a couple of like little hooks that you could use to create your character. Wizard, those hooks are everywhere. Throughout all your subclasses, even though the subclasses look pretty cookie cutter from each other with all the school of.
Right.
But if you look at if you start looking into like the spells, it can be really, really fun to create a vibe based on your caster's spell list. And I really, really enjoy, like you said, the like a wizard with components, and then being able to like, I don't really like, I'm not going to be a hard ass about, you have to have, guano to cast your fireball or whatever. You can use whatever you want. There just are components, and they might change if we forget what's what, and that's fine. Sure. And every now and then you do have to go, spend a little bit of gold to get new components, and we'll call it good for like a couple sessions or something. But like the ability to add flavor is one of my favorite things to do. And there are just so many hooks and opportunities to do so within the wizard class as a whole.
Yeah. And I really appreciate how you're talking about the crafting of the spell list to really hone in who this wizard might be. Like, I guess regardless of the school, you have your mechanical advantages of your subclass, but just to be like, no, I want to focus on damage. I'm going to do mostly evocation, and that is like what this wizard does. Or I want to do all enchantment. It's all about control. It's all about trying to shut down individual or multiple players on the battlefield so my team can do their thing.
Or if you want, if you want to give it like, instead of a mechanical direction, just give it a vibe. And you say, I'm going to be a fire mage. All of my spells, not just the evocation ones, use fire in some way. Like Misty Step, instead of disappearing in a puff of mist, it's a puff of dark smoke,
Smoky
cinders
step.
left behind or something. And, just literally like throw fire flavor into everything that you do magically.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Great. I big soft bot for wizards. They're one of my favorite things. Squishy as all hell.
Yes.
But
give me a glass cannon.
You can't. Right? You can't beat the spell list. You can't. And I don't know. I have friends that have very strong feelings about like whether scribes wizards are cheating because suddenly copying spells now takes you minutes instead of days or hours. And the amount of gold is the same if you're playing by those rules, but like, oh, let me learn a new spell. And I'm done. Great. What were you guys doing? Oh, you're still like sitting waiting for this short rest. Okay, I guess I'll learn another spell.
Well, I think that's, I think that's fine, especially given the fact that, clerics and druids just know the whole spell list of the class at like every single time they they just pick what spells they'll probably cast.
Yeah.
And the wizards have to do the same thing. They have to pick from the spells that they know. Yeah, their spell list is longer, but not by that much.
And the costs of learning the spells are materially greater.
I think that is in comparison to prepared casters, I think that's pretty balanced. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I do love wizards. I want to ask, I think the component question, which is how is there like a stated gold piece threshold at which you're like, no, you need to have that thing. Commonly, I feel like I hear this about Revivify and other things that need like the X value diamond to do the thing. And it seems like a lot of people lean on once you, either if it's those spells, the like Revivify and Resurrection and that thing, or just a certain gold piece value, like you need to go buy that exact thing, or the magical equivalent of spell component, universal spell component.
Like
sort of
you've
thing.
got, if you watch Critical Role, you've always have this amount of residuum dust or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I would have to say it depends on the table. Like, I feel like this is a conversation to have with players beforehand about whether you need to have these material components, how much hand wavery we're going to be doing when you don't have them. Because I feel like specifically, like you mentioned, for Revivify, that's kind of big. Like, you died.
Yeah.
Like, you straight up died, and in normal situations, you wouldn't be coming back. But Revivify is a thing. And that's definitely a conversation to have with the table, like how permanent do we want death to be, like player character death? Because there's a lot of players that will lean into that death, and they're like, yes, I get to make a new character, and I had an epic end to my old one, amazing. And there's other ones that grow like super, super attached to their current character and really don't want to stop playing them. And like both of those are totally fine, but it's a conversation you need to have, and a conversation you need to be able to understand as the DM, which players feel what about their character's death. So I feel like with Revivify, that's kind of like a standout example of, do we want to make death a permanent thing, or do we want to continually be able to, like, yes, the cleric will go spend all of their gold on, get 10 300 gold diamonds so that we'll always be able to come back and yada, yada, yada. But, like that is an option. But I personally think death should be more permanent because it makes a better story. That's the short version.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Like many times, I think with almost every guest, we have come back to the opting in and the consent that needs to happen at your table to make everyone have a good time. In this case,
I'm so happy that almost every guest thinks this.
And if it's come up in a wide variety of like different, character building or storytelling or things, the fact that, for one, at its most basic level, everyone's got to say yes and, right? To keep the game going, to keep the story going. That's what we all have to do. But then that everyone needs to enthusiastically opt in to the scenario and the setting and the things you're doing, and the risk that these imaginary characters that we have made up and have huge attachments to could die in the game. How do we feel about that? How do we want to handle that?
Right.
I have started a new home game recently. We just did our session zeros, and this is honestly the first time for me that we had a extended, like, solid 40 minutes. We were like, how do we feel about these things? And what do we want? Like, and the conclusion was, yes, let's all have a really exciting, narratively appropriate, glorious death in battle sort of thing. If that comes up, please don't just like have some random monster power word kill us for no fucking reason.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think Witcher spoilers here. So
sure.
But there's a point, and I don't remember if I've only played The Witcher 3, and I've seen all the show that's come out. That's it. I haven't read the books. I haven't played the earlier games. But there's a part in it where I realized that I think this is part of one of the games, but Geralt gets stabbed in the gut by a farm boy with a pitchfork and dies. Like,
okay,
like that's a thing that happens, and you can go on so many tangents about, that's dumb. I feel like that's a lame death, but what if this author, these writers put that into such a famous game, and I haven't seen the extent of it, but the little snippet you get in The Witcher 3 about it, of like, just remember what your backstory is, go to the, it's like I don't remember where they are, but there's like a seer that predicts your past, and you get to talk about it for a second. I'm like, this feels like everything that happened in the previous games that you get to set up. But I feel like getting killed by a nobody says something about not only the character, but the world that they're in. It can go very, very grimdark. Like, death is on the table no matter who you are. And it if you do it right, it can put the fear of death into your players' characters.
Yeah. And I think that's important. I think one of the things about D&D is facing situations that you have not been in, right? This comes, I think there's a different angle. There is the therapeutic angle of RPGs, and there is a body of research that I have not dived into about D&D and like other RPG therapy in group settings or in individual settings. And it gives, you are in a, it is a real world consequence-free environment, but letting you explore the actual consequences of your imaginary actions. And one of those consequences might be death.
Yeah.
If you, as they say, fuck around and find out.
Yeah. And I think
Right?
like death is something that you need to be very careful with theming wise. Like again, talk to your players about it. Make sure that you're all on the same page before you dive into that, deeper, more wrenching part of storytelling.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think so. On that extremely cheerful note, now I want to talk more about sagas. So if you want to hear all the rest of
this
this
is such a good segue. This is such a good segue.
Amazing. Great. If you want to hear the rest, go support us on Patreon, patreon.com/therollreport for the entire full unedited interview. And if you are not doing that, you're about to get, more places to follow Dennis and follow the Okayest DM, where you can find sagas and go pick it up. I think because by the time this is out, it will be released.
With hope,
I think.
Well, we'll
With hope?
see. The Kickstarter, as of airing, we are in the middle of the Kickstarter right now. If the Kickstarter funds, the PDF will be pay what you want on DriveThruRPG. Once it's all laid out and the art's done and we made it pretty, we'll put it up on DriveThruRPG. Pay what you want. Our target is like August, September of 2024. So I don't know when this is going to come out, but that's our target right now.
So go find it on DriveThruRPG. If it's out, support it on Kickstarter because it sounds awesome. I can't wait to play. Maybe we'll do a very special episode where we play this game in some totally absurd setting. I would love that. I think my players would be very excited too. So